Hello, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
All right, there we go.
Hey, cynical beat. Bleat. No, it's
Cynical
not a
bleat,
beat,
yeah.
it's a bleat.
Yeah, bleat.
Bah, bah.
Ba ba.
Ba ba
We
ba
already
ba
got action in the chat. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. 3 scuds full. All right. So, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Mikestand Weekend Edition. Rick Piper's here with me tonight. Well, of course, see who else shows up. Our weekly niche panel where we talk all things niche. Whether we just start talking and just get a conversation going, or we do articles. It just depends on where everything goes with it. So,
Well, you know what? We don't talk all things niche in each broadcast. We talk about some things niche, but we are willing to talk about whatever niche thing that comes up.
well,
Because
we don't. It's a simplified way of saying. Rather than saying we talk anime, cartoons, comics,
yeah. Well,
manga.
I just say that because somebody could say, "Well, you're talking all things niche. Well, you didn't talk about this topic, this topic, this topic, this topic, this topic, this topic." Okay, well, there's so many topics we can only cover a couple.
Well, plus,
And of course, I'm just being
as you know, if people have been watching me long enough, they
yeah,
know what I mean when I say all things
yeah,
niche. Because
yeah,
oftentimes, even when I do say we talk things niche, or I usually will also may give a quick reference to the 5 that I just
yeah.
carted
And of
off.
course, I just say that a little facetiously, sarcastically,
Mhm.
knowing that most people understand. Hey, I figured it'd give us a couple seconds worth of something to talk about.
Yeah,
You know?
that's cool. That's cool. Anyways, just as a reminder to everybody, of course, first off, you can like and share the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people in here to engage. That'd be great. Also, if anything here we talk about grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and we will do our best to answer those questions.
Or comment on your comments.
Right? You know, in fact, that's probably something that. Well, all right, we're not gonna get into that back into that conversation. I'll save that for after the show if we need be. But anyways, let's see. Cynical bleed again. Did he change his?
Yeah, I think he changed it to a lamb from a wolf.
Yeah. Because bleed is
Bah,
yeah.
bah, bah, we're lambs. Bah, bah, we're lambs.
Yeah.
I think that's based on the thing. And I do. For those that don't know, there is a group out there called the Apologetics. They're a parody band. They take mainstream songs and make them Christian, and they do Barbara. I think it's Barbara Ann. Ba 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 ba. No, what's the one that goes La Bamba maybe? And they take any one of them and they change it to ba 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 we're lambs. Da, da, da,
Ah,
da. And there's more to the song, but I can't remember.
all right. So anyway, um, oh, he was a blue-eyed dog, um, that looked a lot like my own dog. Oh, okay. Anyways, okay. So as we're of course waiting for, why don't we start with some intros here? Rick, would you like to introduce yourself, share any links, promote anything you're doing right now, your channel, what have you? But before we do that, let me get this last chat from Woody here, Cynical Bleat. Who was something in my images thing on the phone when I was looking up and looking for an image because I deleted my Woody account suddenly when I was really PO'd that YouTube had just censored somebody. Oh, okay. That explains why you have this other account. I've been wondering about that, Woody.
And you said Barbara Ann.
Barbara
Yeah,
Ann.
that's the
All right.
song.
Anyways, Rick. So if you want to do an intro, promote
Well,
anything you're doing, share any links.
of course, as you said, my name is Rick. I am Rick Piper. I am from Cross Comics. There we go. That was hard. I do a comic company. I have several major characters, one of which is the Canadian Shield, and right now I'm eating guacamole chips. And I will put a link in the description for something or other of mine.
Well, let's see. I know you've got Canadian Shield. You've got Snowdrift. Didn't you recently talk about how you were about to start another project or something like that? Or
yeah, I introduced another character called the Flame. Whenever I get to my next project, or whenever I get to my next let's see, comics by there we go. Whenever I get to my next crowdfunder.
all right. Went to the dance, took looked for romance, saw Barbara Ann P, and I thought I'd take a chance.
Yeah, that's it. But
And
the
then,
apologetics do slightly different wording.
yeah. So here's and this is your website, right?
Yeah.
So this is your so you guys want to check out his work.
Well,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, that's specifically the store to buy a Canadian Shield 1 or 2 or digitally or physically and or Snowdrift 1. Canadian Shield.
All right.
Cynical Bleat.
So yeah.
Or Woody.
Yeah, let's see what so the Canadian Shield is actually the name of the whole bunch of mountains up near Banff where I visited once when I was a kid. It was amazing.
Yeah, it's a very big landmass, the Canadian Shield. Is it Banff? Because I thought Banff was on the western side, and it's more, well, for American, it would be eastern, but for Canada, it's more centralist or just east of central. Since our east coast is a little further east than your east coast.
Yeah, let me just do something here. Let's see. So, anything else you'd like to add in there, Rick?
Not at this time. Not that I can think of.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, well, hopefully Metal will be joining us soon because I just looked and he's at least on Facebook right now, so hopefully
that's good.
So,
he is just put a thing in the chat. The Canadian Shield dips down into part of the states. He says, "Yes, it does." And there's Metal.
Yeah. Hey, Metal.
Hello.
All right.
I'm eating.
And you want to read this for everybody since well I know Rick
Rick just read it.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So Rick, anything else you'd like to promote? If not, then we'll have Metal.
I say we should let Metal, since I don't think I really have anything
Metal,
else.
if you want to do your intro, share any links, promote anything you're doing this week, or
I guess I will share the same link I've been sharing if I can pull it up. My computer just started up like 5 minutes ago, so I'm trying to find things. Okay, here we go. going to share the link to Realms and Relics #1 for people who probably haven't bought it yet. But yeah, hi, I'm the Metal. I make comics sometimes, occasionally, once in a blue moon. How you doing?
Yeah, you want to tell everybody a little bit about Realms and Relics?
It's manga style comic. Art somewhat influenced by Tite Kubo and a few other people that I read about these two people that are hopping across the realms to try to find relics. It's it's kind of in the title, but yeah, it's kind of like a classic treasure hunting fetch quest, but you've got two normal people that are trying to not be killed by like gods and Valkyries and demons and other things that would very easily kill them.
And of course, for those who may not know, Tite Kubo is a manga
Bleach.
creator
Yeah.
known for Bleach. So, and you, of course, and I know you do something twice a week on Tuesdays and Saturdays.
Yeah, I do the Vomitorium. It's a show.
And what do you guys talk about on the show?
Stuff.
You're half asleep right now, aren't you?
No, I'm eating at the same time is what I said when I first came in.
So that's why you're not talking too much. All right.
No, he's just purposely, I think, trying to give vague answers. Correct vague answers.
For the fun of it. Just for the fun of it, there, Metal.
Maybe, maybe not. I don't know. I've got Chef Boyardee in front of me.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to promote or share right now, Metal?
No,
or?
I'm good.
All right. So let's get a couple of these other comments in. Cynical. Yeah, I don't know. I was a kid. That's all I can remember, except for how amazing Blue Elite it was. So I guess he's talking about the mountains.
Yeah,
Thanks, guys.
And I just looked up Banff, and it's showing that it's in Alberta. So if you were in Banff, it was, yes, in Canada, but it was not part of the Canadian Shield.
Right.
But if you were in the Canadian Shield, part of what was part of the Canadian Shield, you were not in Banff. So I don't know which one it was.
I understand, because I guess some of it's going over my head a little bit here. The Canadian Shield that you guys are talking about, that's a landmass. Is that like some kind of land?
Yeah, geological landmass.
It's a tectonic structure.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that it goes through a good portion of Ontario, from what I know.
Okay. Wait, is it that area between like Toronto and Detroit? And all
no. Here, give me a second.
It's a huge area. It goes north of Ontario too. It does dip down into like Michigan a little bit, but like there is part of it in the States. It's just this huge tectonic mass.
Well, maybe it could have.
Like, I think that area you're talking about is in the Canadian Shield, but that's not what the Canadian Shield is.
Okay. Well, that's probably what I meant then, because I was saying the way you were making it sound, that's what I figured. Let's see. I like stuff. I thank you. I am caught up in the chat. Hey, Rex. I know I sent you a link on Facebook if you'd like to join us in the studio tonight. Let's see. Hail, Rick and Metal. Get in on the conversation. You want to come in and plug your stuff and all that? Hey, I Google stuff. I yak in the chat. Yeah. Rick, you're still with us, right?
Yeah, I'm here. Because
I just see that Google screen up, so I mean.
Yeah, I was trying to bring up an image of where the Canadian Shield is, or according to Google, here's. I guess this is the natives that it was part of, or was part of it. but I think this is the area according to the Canadian Encyclopedia. So maybe Banff what he was in it because I didn't realize it stretched so far west because
Okay.
just a little part is
Basically,
in Alberta.
the colored parts there, that's the Canadian Shield, is what you're saying.
Yeah, the whole all that colored part is the Canadian Shield. Now this represents different, I guess, Indian tribes way back when or whatever. I'm
Okay.
not sure what this means by Churchill Province, Superior Province. Although those don't really sound like some of them don't sound like native stuff, but Bear Province or Slave Province have do. But
Hmm. Yeah. All right. So thanks, Rick, for that. Let's see. Um, just waiting to see if Rex is in fact going to join. I haven't seen him come in yet. I was hoping he would. I know one of these days. I hope he'll come in and join us. I hope a lot of people that I sent the link to will come in and join us.
Yeah, but a really good way to explain it is because it's a geological formation.
Uh-huh.
Is that North America in general has several geological formations that are different sediment forms on its tectonic plate. So, like, there's the Western Sedimentary Basin, which stretches up from Canada. Up there, they call it the Western Canada Sedimentary Basin, but it even goes down into Northern California a bit. You have the interior platform, which covers basically everything from Alberta all the way almost to, I think, Nova Scotia. But on top of that platform is another sedimentary mass that is the Canadian Shield, which forms like a really big ring. And even slightly in the middle, you get off of it back into the interior platform. And that's what causes some of the rock formations in that area, where how the forests and stuff form, is because there's this big sediment platform on top of another big sediment platform.
yeah,
All right. Well, let's see. We got Woody's saying here. Cool. I always figured it was further west than what you're showing.
yeah. I didn't realize it. I know I've looked at it before, but I guess I didn't register that it went as far west as it did. I didn't think it went out of Ontario or not much, but apparently it spans quite a
Well,
bit.
yeah. The impression I was getting, Rick, based on how you were talking, I thought it was that I guess the Niagara area was probably because I know
Oh
the
yeah.
Niagara
Well, I didn't
area is
mean to
kind of
make it that small. I didn't mean to make it that small, but then again, you know, um,
I do believe
most of
Niagara's
our
in it, though.
province, yeah. Well, actually, in looking at what I just showed, it didn't appear to be,
Oh, do you
but
think it Niagara's just on the interior platform?
Oh, what was that?
I was asking if you
uh,
thought Niagara was just on the interior platform. Because
yeah, it
everything in that
doesn't.
area is on the interior platform, but then there's that big ring that kind of makes the Canadian Shield that sits on top of it.
Oh, okay.
Like if you look at it here,
According
the
to
purple part
them
is just
glaciers
above
were big.
where I would
Yep.
be, above the
Okay, yeah.
Niagara.
So it is just on the platform.
Yeah. Now it doesn't, of course, show the parts of the states that it's in below the border here.
Yeah, but it's
You
pretty
know,
much just Michigan.
Hmm.
More or less.
but yeah, I thought it came, but I knew it was a good portion of Ontario. I didn't realize it was like I said as big as it was. It covers all of Quebec actually here, or pretty much all of Nunavut. Well, not all of Nunavut, a bunch of Nunavut, a bunch of um,
Yeah, there's a
northwest.
better map that you can find that actually shows you the sediment platforms on
Yeah,
Google. I think
yeah.
it's
I just
it shows up if you type in Canadian Shield landmass.
Yeah, I just wanted to show the basic. Here, this one looks
Well,
close.
that one looks even a little bit smaller.
No,
Yeah,
it's about the same. It's a slightly different projection.
but I can.
Well, while you guys
Oh,
are showing that,
it does get a little bit into
I'm gonna step away for a moment. I'll be right
Wisconsin.
back.
I knew it was in Minnesota and parts of Michigan. I didn't know it got down into Wisconsin though.
Yeah, and New York here too. It gets into
Yeah.
Newfoundland, Labrador. So except for like what one, 2, 3, 4 provinces
Yeah.
and one territory, it doesn't cover.
Yeah, well, that's also like I was in. The interior platform goes almost to Nova Scotia, but most of that is the Appalachian sedimentary platform, which is basically everything to the east of the Appalachians, where those plates end up like rubbing up together and making the mountains.
Clinical Bleat says them glaciers was big. Yes, they were. So no Banff at all. I'm so embarrassed. Well, let's see. Let me bring up another map. I will do it. Let me open up another thing here. Banff, Alberta. Images. Okay, so
I take it you were finished with your presentation there, Rick.
well, one sec.
He's not sure.
I'm just trying to see whether I can find out where Banff National Park is, how much it takes up. Banff. So I'm not showing what you can take it off me for the moment if you want. Bam. Let's see.
Well, I shrunk it back down to the rest of us. So
yeah.
Oh, let's see. Well, let's see.
Oh yeah, definitely. Banff is nowhere close to the Canadian Shield, even for the little part that is in.
Yeah, I was a kid. I would have been visiting there in the late '60s. I guess my folks were school teachers, and we had summers.
Yeah. So Banff is right here. It's showing, and then the Canadian Shield was up. Well, I'm not sure whether you're showing me. Was up in this area, so it is a fair distance away. Because most of the Canadian provinces, except for the prairie provinces, are way bigger than most states. you only have like Texas that compares to the size of most Canadian provinces.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the Yukon Territory itself is pretty big, right?
Yeah. Well, the Northwest Territories used to be the biggest territory in Canada, but and Ontario or Quebec was the largest province.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure which was bigger, Ontario or Quebec.
Yeah.
Probably Quebec just slightly.
So Woody's here saying, "Oh, it's beautiful. It's right in the heart of the most luxurious, beautiful Canadian Rockies." All right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, which is that's the border between BC and Alberta. So talking about the Canadian Shield got us like 20 minutes.
Yeah,
Keep
that
going
was,
on.
that was a very good length of time there. I was thinking of asking, have there been any like? Well, I know maybe not as much with you, Rick, but I know that Metal, you like me will watch animes and stuff. You guys been watching any animes of late? Anything of interest caught your eye of late?
No. I think I even told you the last time that we were on together that there's just like not much in this lineup that was interesting me. I'm like I know the other half of Urusei Yatsura is coming, but aside from catching that, I think I'm kind of just waiting for the spring lineup to be released.
Oh yeah. Well, actually, I was going over an article the other day. Um, I don't know if you've heard of an anime called Kingdom.
No.
Their season 5 is coming out this time around. It's basically about the era of the Chinese warring states as they were becoming a country. Um, yeah.
So is it another retelling of the Romance of the Three Kingdoms?
I don't know if it was or not because I don't know what the Romance of the Three Kingdoms was, but
It's one of the most popular Chinese stories about the warring states.
well, I guess what we can do here. Let me pull it up here, and then we can
I
go through
can't
the art.
remember I can't remember what it's called, but I've been watching through Tubi. They have a bunch of dubbed
Yeah.
anime movies and TV series. I watched a couple of anime movies.
Yeah. Okay. So here's, of course, what I was just talking about here. This is and I've seen like I think the first 2 or 3 seasons of this. I think they're saying that this is going to be season 5. It's actually a pretty cool anime, pretty jam packed. So Kingdom Anime declassifies season 5 war plans, unveils official premiere date. Article by Nerdigans published back on October 3rd, anime section. So we'll go over this and then you can figure. I guess we can figure out if it is what you were talking about there, Metal. So the war drums are beating once again as coming hot off the heels of the franchise's third live action film, Flames of Destiny, slaying of the Japanese box office, Shueisha and Studio Signpost have officially unveiled their war plans for the 5th season of Kingdom's anime adaptation. And there's, I guess, a trailer pic right there of it. And then the main character is the one right there at the bottom. That's, I believe, the main character, the lead character. An adaptation of Yasuhisa Hara's historical manga, Kingdom, chronicles the quest of Shin, who is voiced in Japanese by Masakazu Morita, who provides the voice of Titus and the Japanese voice of
The
Titus.
famous laugh.
What was that?
The famous Titus laugh.
In Final Fantasy X, a young man living during China's Warring States era who wishes to establish himself as one of the King States General of the Heavens. Does that sound a little bit like what you were talking about?
Yeah, so because I was reading before you got to it the character list and what it's covering. I'm a little more interested now because it isn't just a retelling of the romance. It takes place in the same time period, but this seems to be historical fiction, like where they're using some people that were known from the period, but some people that are original, and they're just telling a story that takes place during that time. This isn't the ancient story that is the Romance of the Three Kingdoms, and that's a little better. I love Chinese stories, but the only two you ever see people retell are The Romance of the Three Kingdoms and Journey to the West. So it's more interesting when somebody tells something that isn't one of those two.
Yeah. Anyway,
Clinical
okay.
Geek says-
Woody had a couple of things to say here. Romance of the Three Kingdoms. Tell more. Those young men are definitely grimacing. And then tell me about the laugh. I'm not familiar with the sound history. Well, I think when he was talking about the laugh there, that was from another, because while I read off the actor's name and another role that actor did.
Yeah, he played Tidus in Final Fantasy X, and there's a famous laugh scene in it where the English guy actually came really, really close to the Japanese guy's laugh, and he has to do this really fake laugh to try to motivate the high priestess to continue doing her thing because she's like depressed, and he's like, sometimes you just need to force yourself to laugh, and he intentionally does this really fake laugh, and she kind of giggles, and then she does the really fake laugh too, but everybody sees that laugh and they think it's like a really bad what's it called, like a really bad direction, bad voice acting, but the laugh was supposed to be bad, like in the scene itself. That's the context of it.
All right. So anyway, getting back to the article here, so we can learn more about this for everybody.
I feel so ignorant.
Beginning life as a lowly slave, through little more than his own sheer determination and willingness to learn, Shin slowly begins to rise through the ranks of the Qin Emperor's army. Though the further he gets, the more he realizes that such prestige does not come without its own set of trials and tribulations. Sounds like a good basis for a story, huh, guys?
Yeah.
And I can agree with all this because, as I said, I've seen, I think, the first 2 or 3 seasons of it. So, yeah, I think it's 3 because I think when I was watching it was 39. This is up to season 5, so I think I've seen the first 3 seasons of it. So it's probably 4 seasons are out there. This is for the 5th season coming up. So, covering the highly anticipated Kokuyo campaign arc, the 5th season of Kingdom's anime adaptation will see Shin and the men under his charge dispatched to Kokuyo Hill, a heavily forested region composed of 5 hills located within the territory of Qin's enemy, Zhao. Let's see. Though usually considered strategically irrelevant to all of China's armies, the current war has resulted in the area becoming a highly coveted staging ground for the Qin's plans to take Zhao. As such, a tired Shin and his fellow Qin soldiers find themselves set against the Zhao's defensive forces. And though this fight seems slightly one-sided against the Qin, the deployment of their General Kanki, who is voiced in the Japanese by Kentaro Ito, who provides a Japanese voice for Renji Abarai in Bleach 1,000-Year Blood War, luckily produces more than a few beneficiary battlefield surprises. And then this is from the Hisshin unit takes down enemy forces in Kingdom Season 3, so 22, all with all we have. So look at that scene right there. That's a scene from the anime, from one of the earlier scenes of the anime. And thankfully, for those with a thirst for glory, the fight for Kokuyo Hill is set to kick off sooner rather than later. Releasing a new teaser visual for the upcoming season, itself featuring a shot of General Kanki standing alongside his right-hand advisor, Marin, who is voiced in Japanese by Motoki Takuma, who provides a voice of Saika in Eden Zero. Trusted muscle Raido, who is voiced in Japanese by Kenji Nomura, who provides the voice of Void in Undead Unlock. And Master Archer and Tactical Genius, Kokuo, who Japanese voice provided by Haruka Nagamine, who provides the voice of Tiana and Endo and Kobayashi Live. The latest on Tsundere Villainous Lisalat. Studio Signpost revealed that Kingdom's 5th season will officially March 4th on January 6th, 2024. Let's see. First premiering at 12 a.m. Japanese Standard Time on NHK General in Japan. Kingdom's 5th season will also receive same-day simulcast from Crunchyroll. Meanwhile, those looking to catch up on Sheen's past exploits can catch the first 4 seasons of the Kingdom anime on Crunchyroll, or the first 2 live-action film adaptations, which both come highly recommended on Netflix. So Metal, does that spark your interest at all?
I'll be honest. I was looking at some pictures of the manga at the same time over on Google, and while the anime does look pretty, I think the manga looks better, and I'm more likely to just go back and catch up on the series that way.
I'll go back and read the manga.
Yeah, because apparently it's been running since 2012 and still is, so there's a lot of manga to catch up on.
Okay. Yeah, we already did that. I feel so ignorant. Ignorant. All right, so that was that. Let's see. So what did you guys? So yeah, that. But I've as I said, I've watched some of the anime. I think I've watched.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's a pretty
Definitely sounds like an interesting anime, I'll say. There's lots of interesting anime out there. Unfortunately, not a lot of time to watch it all.
Yeah. Yeah, trying to keep up on all that, trying to find the ones that are dubbed and then, go back and anyways, go back, just get back to what we were looking at, and then and I know, Metal. There's another story here that I know you would have heard a bit about. I know there have been a few other commentators, including Vera Dark, who talked about it. Castlevania Nocturne.
Oh yeah, actually, I think we were even just talking about that yesterday on the Vomitorium. Yeah,
well, because I covered that article too. I think the other day here, on the Bounty in the Comics. I'll pull that up here. Maybe we'll go through that and talk a little bit about that as well.
Oh yeah, I'm sure everybody has some flavored opinions about that.
Yeah, so
hopefully I do, because I don't know too. Obviously, almost obviously, I've played Castlevania before, but I don't think I've played it since the Super NES.
Yeah.
Yes, there is a Vomitorium Clinical Bleat. That is Metal's channel.
No. That would have been Super Castlevania 4 would have been the last time you played it if you played it on the Super Nintendo.
Yeah. I know I only played 1 or 2 of them on the NES. But of course, I've seen a bunch of them since then. I could have played it on another system for like 5 minutes or something like that.
Oh, well, you'll hear some of my opinions because I'm a big fan of the Castlevania video game franchise, and I have not been a fan of this animation series.
Of this particular one? Yeah, well, because
this and the previous one too.
Simon Belmont was also one of the characters they used back in the 80s for Captain N, the video game or game master.
Yes, though he's not a character that shows up in either of the Castlevania series that they've been doing so far.
Yeah. Well, let me go over this article, and then because one of the things I have heard that they've been like basically trashing the Belmont name in all of this.
Yes, they
So,
have.
All right,
Well, if
so
that's something that they're doing. That's certainly not a way to keep fans.
yeah, but as we know, a lot of modern day creators they just have a way of turning off fans.
Yeah.
A lot of mainstream modern day mainstream creators, that is. So Castlevania Nocturne director Samuel Dietz disavows Netflix marketing's insulting of Richter Belmont. Quote, it was disrespectful to the story, characters, fans, and to us as creators, unquote. So yeah, the thing that was really getting a lot of people's attention here was just how it was being marketed. Article by Nerdigans published back on October the 4th. So, despite the fact that the series itself treats the source material with an arguably worse level of care, director Samuel Dietz has decried Netflix's recent attempt to market Castlevania Nocturne by publicly insulting its lead protagonist and favorite, vampire slayer Richter Belmont. From what I understand, I guess Richter is Simon's son or something like that?
Richter is a descendant. He is not direct. The closest he could be to Simon is possibly his grandson, but it depends on what adaptation is deciding to do. You could make him his direct son. It's the generations between him and Simon are unknown.
But he's a descendant of Simon.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. He's also probably everybody's favorite one, because he was the main character of Rondo of Blood and Symphony of the Night, which this story is supposed to be going over Rondo of Blood.
All right, so the insult in question, as made by the series' official Twitter account on September 30th, was itself inspired by a series of events which begin in Nocturne's 4th episode, quote-unquote, Horrors of the Earth. Therein, during Richter, Maria, and Annette's mission to rescue the latter's capture companion, Edward, the group would find themselves in a surprise confrontation with the vampire Olrox, otherwise known as the beast that ended the life of Richter's mother. So is that from Rondo of Blood then?
I actually don't remember them talking about how Richter's mother died. That could be fan fiction, or in the case of just added story for the show.
Okay. Unprepared to so suddenly find himself face to face with his mother's killer, Richter soon experiences a bout of PTSD, the pain of which causes him to turn tail and abandon the mission. As he does, annoyed with his sudden exit, Annette accuses the traumatized Belmont of being nothing more than a run-of-the-mill coward.
Okay. What my question is, this is obviously taking place during medieval times.
No. No, it's not. It is post Renaissance. It actually takes place in the very, very early industrial age. Like the steam engine has already been invented.
So what, 1700s then?
It's
maybe?
like late 16s, yeah.
Okay.
It sounds like late 17th, early 18th century.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And it all progresses all the way through the industrial era, but it's basically supposed to take place post Dracula, right? Like the original Castlevania is kind of like a video game follow-up to the book Dracula.
Uh-huh. Yeah, and I say that just because I was trying to think, would somebody training and all that this guy's been through, would he tuck tail and run after suddenly seeing his mother's killer, or would he just be more enraged?
Well, the PTSD can do that too. It can trigger you to do acts of violence out of being in that shock state. It's fight or flight is what it triggers. But Richter in the game series is actually considered one of the bravest of the Belmonts, so it's kind of double insulting to try to make him a coward that would run away in a fight or flight situation.
Yeah. Anyways, before we get back to the article, let me get caught up on some of the chats here. So, Cynical Bleat, just think of all of it as destroying the past. It's all part of creating the future, and drink your green titty milk. Okay.
Of course, that is a reference to Star Wars.
Mm-hmm. And then Med, I guess you were sharing the link to the vomitorium for Cynical Bleat there.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks. Okay. And Solid Redfield here. Greetings. Hey, Solid.
Hey, Solid.
Welcome to the stream. So, anyways.
So that I must say, not really knowing the character, but a character of that reputation, especially for even in that time period, it just seems uncharacteristic of the character.
Yeah. So later on in Nocturne's 6th episode, Guilty Men to be Judged, Annette vents her frustration over this event to the spirit of her mentor, Cecile. Still annoyed with Richter's quick exit, Annette at one point laments how, quote, the Belmont boy turned out to be useless as manure.
Bleep bleep.
Yeah. Quote, he literally ran away, unquote, she then proclaimed. Quote, ran away, unquote.
Yeah, and this now I don't know anything again about this character. Even if for some stupid reason this Richter would run, which I doubt, would this character be so uncaring? Would she know why and just not, give two hoots?
Well, actually, the worst part is the dialogue too, right? And this was one of the problems I had with the first Castlevania series, which was written by, I'm going to say this as sarcastically as I can, everyone's favorite comic writer, Warren Ellis, who I hate. The dialogue was awful. They spoke like modern day teenage girls sometimes and not time appropriate. And even the dialogue here, which I forget the name of the guy who took over this series, but I looked into his background, and of course,
the director here, Simon Dietz, but
the writer who took over Warren Ellis's position. I looked into his background, and lo and behold, turns out he was a socialist. But I look at this dialogue and I'm like, this sounds atrocious. This is not the way that anybody of that time would talk, especially vampires are supposed to be like sophisticated and aristocratic, and this person is saying things in a way that a teenage girl would talk in the modern day.
Yeah, this character that's supposed to be a friend of Richter Belmont, bitching and complaining to a ghost or whatever, from what I get. Wouldn't she she would probably confront, again, I don't know the character, but I would think a character of that time, especially dealing with what they do, would confront him head on about it. Would he... the characters a little bit better than me, or how they're supposed to act. Would he then tell what happened, and would she be a little bit more compassionate? Metal?
No, I don't think there would be any compassion here, but also this person isn't exactly a friend.
Oh, okay. I was assuming friend, because they were traveling together or whatever.
Well, I think it's closer to say that they might be somewhat allies because they're in the same party, but then I might be wrong there as well.
They become friendly, but they wouldn't be at this point.
Oh, okay. So
All right. So, anyways, Solid saying here,
But he'd be more like she'd be more
Castlevania,
likely to rip. Sorry, I'll let you go.
Castlevania Lament of Innocence, the first chronological game in the series, is set in 1049.
Yeah, but that was made way later. I was talking about the actual first game was kind of designed to be a sequel to the Dracula novel. Obviously, that got written out later, but that's what they were doing with the first game.
All right. So, Rick, what were you trying to say there?
So then this character would be more likely just to forget the compassion. Would be more likely to rip, Ricker a new one, for lack of a better way of expressing it.
Mm-hmm.
With no compassion or whatever, but still, I don't think the character would not go bitch and complain to somebody else, and bitch and complain to the actual person. Would
Metal,
that be
you have a response for that? Since you're our Castlevania expert here.
Do I have a response to that? My problem is none of these characters are acting anything like the way they do in the game that they actually come from. So there's really no way of rationalizing any of these people, right?
Yeah,
Now,
well,
these
I'm
things are
trying
kind of
to-
just written as like a fan fiction, so these characters are awful. Like they don't act the way they should, right? And you could try to say like,
Yeah.
oh, wouldn't this person be acting this way? But like, they just
Yeah.
won't.
Well, obviously, I get in this.
Sounds like another case of some writers taking some creative liberties again.
Yeah, obviously, I get that this series has written the characters completely wrong. But I'm just trying to get a handle on the characters as they're supposed to be. That's more what my questions are. Trying to get.
I think what Metal might be saying though is that's the point. And the way that the characters are written here in Nocturne, they're not written according to how they were written in the game.
Yeah.
Also, I went and double checked the timeline because it has moved a little bit, but Rondo of Blood does mention when it takes place in there, so we do know. It took place in 1792.
All right.
Oh,
And guys, let me just cut in here real quick and let's welcome Tim. Tim has joined us. Hey, Tim.
Castlevania,
Hey,
right?
Tim.
Yeah, we're talking about Castlevania. Let me at least get this last chat here. So J.R. Edgar saying Dracula novel was set in 1870s or so, definitely Victorian.
Yeah,
but we're not necessarily talking about Dracula here. We're talking about Castlevania, which is a game.
Well, because I brought it up and I said the original game, which was their intent before they kind of made a timeline and they went backwards and they filled everything out, was kind of written as a sequel to the Dracula novel. Now, that isn't the case any longer. A lot of people's games start out one way and then become different. After that first game, Castlevania started fleshing out its own timeline and is something completely separate from Dracula.
Right. Now, before we continue,
Although Dracula is in.
Yes, he is the main antagonist in the Castlevania series.
In the Castlevania universe.
Yeah.
Well, before we continue on with the article and all this, let's welcome Tim. Tim, if you want to introduce yourself and share any links you'd like or promote anything you got coming out, you want to go ahead and do that?
All right. I am the creator of Melvin. Melvin number 3, along with Melvin number 0, is still live right as we speak on Fun My Comic. The book Melvin 3 is actually formatted and ready to go. I'll be doing a test run, maybe I don't know when, but soon. Melvin 0 is being lettered right now.
Mm-hmm. And as I said, if you'd like to share any links,
there is a fascinating review of Melvin 1 and 2 on Metal's website. I've read it like several times. It's one of my favorite fair and balanced reviews of my books.
Oh, I could share that. Let me go find it.
Oh yeah. It's
well, while Metal's doing that, let me get caught up here on the chats real quick. A couple of chats here. I kind of already highlighted a couple of them beforehand there. Let's see. Solid was saying the Grim Reaper serves.
Serves.
I think you mean
it's supposed
serves.
to say servers, but I think you wrote servers.
Yes.
Paired
Yeah,
Dracula,
but down below
and
he says serves.
yeah,
Hmm.
Castlevania, and then serves. Okay, he corrected himself afterwards. And I guess this is that link to that review.
Oh
Mel?
yes, that's it.
Yes.
So if you guys want to go check that out, go ahead and click that and
It's a
copy.
very well written review.
All right. Anything
That I
else
did
you
not
want
write.
to talk about or promote?
I know. Some guy named Rat Trash wrote it.
Rat Trash, yeah.
Really catchy name, actually.
Yeah.
Yes,
so-
and he also did a review of the Canadian Shield 1. Not quite the most favorable review, but not the worst either. Well,
No.
not that I haven't had. I don't. Probably the worst one I've had, but still could have been worse. But
Yeah. Well,
that's over there too.
Yeah.
But you can read it, and then you can go grab your copy on Cross Comics to see whether you agree.
right, there you go. That's what's up.
all right.
The real person that Dracula is based on is actually equally as fascinating as Dracula.
Vladimir the
Vlad
Third.
Tepes.
Would that be you, Tim?
No,
No.
Vlad Tepes is who Tim's talking
Yeah,
about.
Yeah.
Vladimir the Third, also known as Vlad the Impaler.
Yep.
Mhm.
There was a story about, I guess, that he had a mistress, and for him it was just lust. But she told him she was pregnant, so he responded by splitting her up with the middle with a sword.
Splitting her like right down the middle with a sword.
Yeah, from the neck to probably where the
Wow.
Or he had he staked a bunch of old Hungarians, and then he had the younger Hungarians they had captured rebuild this castle that became his castle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then he staked those people after he was done with the castle, or they were done with the castle.
Yeah, he didn't just impale people, though. There were some cool things that he did, too. Like, when he was younger, he was imprisoned in a Turkish prison camp, and he grew up and he learned how to speak perfect Turkish. So when he went on his campaign later, he would sneak into the Turkish camps in disguise as the soldiers, and they couldn't tell that he was somebody in disguise because his Turkish was, like, native and flawless.
Right.
All right, guys accusing him of me here. So Woody said, "Oh my," and then he said, "Was this for Jack the Ripper? Is this where Jack the Ripper got his inspiration?"
No.
Yeah, no one knows.
Completely
Really,
separate.
Not
no
to our
one really
knowledge.
knows who Jack the Ripper was.
I
They
know
have a
who
few
he
ideas.
was.
Well,
I know exactly who he
He
was.
was a serial
You think
killer.
so?
Yes, it was you, Meadow. You went back in time.
England.
No. I actually have a theory that I've put together that explains exactly Jack the Ripper and also why he didn't get caught and why the accounts of him vary so wildly, even beyond the point of like you can't remember things properly when you're afraid. And it's because I think Jack the Ripper was actually a tale, or it was a almost like a planted myth to cover up the Knights Templar cleaning up the streets of London, because most of the people that Jack the Ripper killed were criminals and prostitutes.
Really? Because
Yeah.
according to this they use DNA on the crime scene. They think that they already actually had the guy that I was actually committing the murders, and he was like this immigrant from again it was from Eastern Europe, and they think they already
Oh yeah,
had
I've
him.
seen that stuff. Yeah, no, I think it was very carefully orchestrated because they already knew some forensics back then, not quite to the level that we do. And I
course.
do think it was the Knights Templar that was actually just trying to clean up the streets, and they were trying.
Didn't
to make
the
it look
Knights
like they
Templar
were
get
doing
done
it.
away by the Spanish king and the Catholic
There was
Church?
evidence they were still around that time, just as a very, very underground organization.
Well, in the fact that we're talking about the Jack the Ripper angle here, and Metal, you might be able to answer this if you know anything about this. In JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, Dio Brando turned Jack the Ripper into one of his zombie servers. Okay,
Yes, he did that in the original Phantom Blood arc.
Interesting. And then-
Another Vladimir story that I found interesting is he'd have court. He'd hold court right where he staked like an army he had defeated, and some noblemen complained about the smell, so he staked them higher than the bodies.
All right, and then Cynical Bleat was saying, interesting theory, I like it. So I guess he's talking about the theory that you had there, Metal. And then, but yeah, I distracted from Vlad the Impaler. Tell us more about Vlad the Impaler. Well, or we get back to the article and talk more about Castlevania, which, has the connection to Vlad the Impaler. What do you guys want to do? So we go back to the article?
Whichever.
indifferent.
Probably should finish the article.
All right.
I think I distracted a little.
I shall mute myself.
That's okay, Tim.
Timothy the muter.
All right, so for some reason, believing this moment to be a quote-unquote selling point for Nocturne, despite the fact that its source material, Castlevania Rondo of Blood, is specifically a Richter-centric adventure, the official Netflix Castlevania account shared Annette's dismissal of the hot-headed hero and added, quote, no matter the timeline, the Belmonts stay getting humbled by their magic companions, unquote. Again, Metal, you're our Castlevania expert here. What's your take on that statement?
Yeah, I hated that when I saw that screenshot online. Also, the idea that it's a Richter-centric, it's like, yes, technically, Rondo of Blood has 2 playable characters, and both of them are important to the story, and that's Richter and Maria Rennard. Maria's cool. She attacks people with, like, birds and squirrels and stuff, like a Disney princess. I like Maria. But, no, yeah, that did not sit with me well.
She has the power to communicate with animals.
Yes. Yeah. She very similar. She's almost like Squirrel Girl in a way. How like Squirrel Girl will attack with squirrels and stuff. She's almost designed like a Disney princess too, the way that she's dressed because it's time appropriate. But yeah, getting humbled by their magic companions. In some of the games, like the Belmonts, they would have friends that would help them, but it would only be if they were stuck on one thing or another. Like the Belmonts do basically everything, right? Like. They probably would have found other ways around the problem, too. The friends are there kind of more to flavor the game when they show up, not to humble the Belmonts.
Right. They're more to add to the story than really to detract from it. Right?
So you're saying the Belmonts don't usually get humbled by whoever their friend or companion or whatever?
No, they'll get humbled by the obstacles in their way, though. Like, there's a lot of really tough things that they have to like rise to face the challenge. Like was brought up, the Grim Reaper Death serves Dracula because Dracula basically went down to hell and kind of became the king of hell and then resurrected. So even death serves him. It's there's a lot of really terrifying obstacles that have been added since the original. The original was mostly just like Universal movie monsters were all the bosses. Right, because it was just very much a simple story for the original Castlevania game, but it's been expanded on so much, and Dracula is almost like this unending plague on humanity.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but the name Dracula literally means son of the devil or son of the dragon.
Pretty much.
Which is symbolic for the devil. So it seems fitting that he went to hell.
No, she doesn't attack birds and squirrels. She attacks with birds and squirrels.
Yes.
It would also seem very appropriate that he becomes the king of hell because he is pretty much, hence the name, son of the devil.
Heir apparent?
Yeah.
All right. So with that, let's continue on with the article here. Unsurprisingly, this tweet did not go over well with the series fans, especially those whose introduction to the series came in the form of Konami's original games, many of whom proceeded to push back against Netflix's insult. Quote, This Belmont slander is getting ridiculous, unquote. At Darian Belmont declared, quote, in what timeline or universe are the Belmonts being, in smaller quotes, humbled by their companions outside of this adaptation? I don't know why these writers hate the Belmonts so much, but it's getting really old, unquote. I think that's pretty much what you were just saying, right there, Mel?
Yeah, more or less. Yeah, I mean, like the Belmonts are the stars of the show who end up solving the problems. Even like you could take Symphony for the Night for a example, right? Where he gets aid from Alucard, right, who is Dracula's son in this series. Even then, it's still the Belmont who ends up solving everything. Alucard, while being a playable character, a very fun campaign to play through the game as Alucard, is still more of flavor. He's assistant. They're both doing it, but at no point is he being humbled by this son of a vampire.
Mm-hmm.
Bleep
All right.
says, thank you for the clarification with regards to the birds and squirrels. I was almost triggered.
Yeah. Well,
Stop triggering people.
I think I have the answer to the question. The idea why they keep going after the Belmonts, and it's a common answer we find with many people who seem to tinker around with a lot of these legacy properties, because Belmonts are what? They
Real
are
men?
cisgendered white men, right?
Oh no, it's worse than that. Actually, I'm gonna go a step further. The Belmont clan represents a patriarchal line of saviors to people. Right? Because it is every single time it is a male member of the Belmont clan who ends up doing these things. Almost taking on the inheritance of putting Dracula down from their previous members of the Belmont clan.
Is this another property that we'll pretty much have to let die?
No, because as a game series, they're trying to resurrect it. The game series is still mostly fine. There was like one bad spin-off game with a sequel for the Xbox, and that was it. Other than that, like Castlevania as a game is fine. It's this adaptation that's the problem.
Yeah, and Metal, do you want to, since he wasn't here yet when you went on your little diatribe about that particular author, you want to tell everybody a little bit more about that author that you hate?
Well, there was two people, right? So the first Castlevania series was widely written by Warren Ellis, who you would know from comics. And I'll be honest, I think the only thing I've ever read by Warren Ellis that I kind of enjoyed was like his 2016 Moon Knight run. And that's because Moon Knight is a ridiculous character, so like his writing didn't bother me. Aside from that, though, I don't think I've ever enjoyed anything Warren Ellis ever wrote. And then the guy who took over for Nocturne, I can't remember his name. I looked into it. But when I found his background, he basically was just a socialist. Like an outright, he would tell people that he's basically just a socialist. I'm like, everything makes sense.
Let me ask you this: is Castlevania Nocturne considered an anime?
I wouldn't consider it an anime. Like,
but
I think
generally speaking, is it considered an anime?
I don't know how to answer that. What do you mean, generally speaking?
Okay, well, let me, because
Would most other people consider it an anime?
For you there.
I would call them stupid if they did.
Okay,
because
so
the reason they consider it an anime is because Netflix calls it an anime, and it has that general aesthetic to it. But I don't think there's barely anyone even tied to Japan that works on this series. And while in Japanese, anime just means animation, in the West, we use it to refer to Japanese animation.
I'm looking it up on...
It's widely American, though. Like, I think there's more American studios that work on it than Japanese.
So, are you talking about the person who wrote the first season of it, or the second season of it?
Well, the first one was of Castlevania, right? The one without a title was Warren Ellis. There's a
Alright.
different person writing.
Well,
Nocturne.
okay. So I've got 3 listings here. From okay. So let me do this. And I'll show you what I just pulled up here, so you know what I'm talking about. So I went over to and part of the reason why I was asking if it was an anime because I went over to Anime News Network. Now,
Yeah.
granted, I know we don't necessarily trust the news items of it, but they do have also like a lot of the information on all the animes, like cast and crew and all that. So there's 3 listings right there. There's Castlevania US ONA, Castlevania Nocturne. Well, here, let me just go and read it.
Well, actually, I found the writer I was talking about, the actual head writer for Castlevania Nocturne.
Oh, okay.
Right.
So,
His name is Clive Bradley.
Clive Bradley. Okay.
He's worked on a few different things. He is a prominent member of the Writers Guild of Britain, because he's British. And in his biography section, it says that Bradley is a socialist, has been involved with the Alliance for Workers' Liberty and its predecessors since the 1980s.
All right. Well, the only reason I was asking is I was gonna try to see if I could track down the name of the writer for you, but if you already got it, then
Yeah.
because I went to Anime News now because they even so maybe the news articles lean left there, but they still do have the information on like cast.
Yeah, they have the
crew and all
basic
Yeah.
information that would be true no matter what.
that. Yeah. So
And I'm not sure whether I said this earlier. Hello, JR.
yeah.
Since he did say a couple things in the chat earlier that we've read, I just wasn't sure when he did or whether I said hello.
Yeah. Well, I acknowledged him too.
Yeah, well, you acknowledged him just by having his chats up. But
Yeah, I think I said hi as well. But anyways, back to the article here. All right, so let's see. Yeah,
this is it.
quote, need I remind you that Simon Belmont single-handedly killed Dracula twice, unquote, recalled at Baron von Crispy, quote, and the second time he was practically on his deathbed trying to kill Dracula, unquote.
What a horrible night to have a curse.
What
What a horrible night to have a curse.
was that why he was on his deathbed?
Yeah. He after he killed Dracula, he ended up cursed, so he had to like go and find Dracula's remains and kill him again to remove the curse.
How do you kill somebody that's already dead, though?
Like that stops Dracula.
But you gotta remember too, Dracula is practically the only way to really kill Dracula is to stake him in the heart. Or to kill him.
No, he's only mostly dead.
Yeah, but if you've already staked him in the heart and he's dead, how do you kill him again?
Well, staking the heart also doesn't put Dracula down for good. I mean, he keeps coming back anyway. I mean, he escaped hell once after he basically became the prince of it. Do you think he's not going to do it again?
Quote, these shows are written by no one except charlatans and wretches, envious of the devotion the games have garnered, unquote, they added. Metal, you have anything you want to say on that?
No, I don't have anything to add. I mean, that's true. That's basically what I've been saying. Like, this is a very popular franchise.
Would you be in agreement with that?
Yeah, like this is a very, very popular franchise. Lots of people love Castlevania. It's been running strong for the most part. It's been on a break for a little bit, but it's been running strong since the 80s. Like, people love Castlevania. People were even hyped when Simon and Richter were brought to Smash Brothers in the last Smash Brothers game just a few years ago. Like, you're kind of screwing with the wrong crowd if you're trying to mess up Castlevania.
All right. Quote, you all had one of the best things with Castlevania and you blew it, unquote, noted at Chilongo 83. Quote, this is why people loved the strike. You literally suck at your jobs and deserve to lose. Unquote.
Like,
Anybody want to say anything on that?
Oh, speaking of, they're the same exact team of people, the same studio that does Castlevania, is about to go ruin another one of my favorite games, which is Devil May Cry. Apparently, they have the license and green light for that. They've already started working on the series. I'm like, no, please, I don't want you making an animation about Devil May Cry. It's going to be awful. You guys will hate on Dante the same way you hated on the Belmonts.
Well, I know that Devil May Cry already has an anime adaptation from a few years
Yes,
ago.
it's
And
it
I
takes
know that-
place
I know that
between the
ABC was
second and
one who
fourth
did
game.
did the dub of that. In fact, let's see. Just to get quickly caught up here, Cynical Bleak said Clive. All right. And then JR was responding to you there, Rick.
yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
And then Cynical Woody, as we know him. How about a silver stake through the vast difference?
Well,
that
I
would
don't
probably
think
be real
Silver's supposed to
painful.
be able to work on vampires, so
It
that's
does.
werewolves.
It also works. So there's actually a whole thing about silver where people thought it used to have holy properties, and because you wouldn't get germs on it, silver doesn't really corrode visibly. Actually, instead of normal corrosion, all oxygen does is just leach the silver off, so you have slightly less silver over time instead of like rust or anything. So people thought silver had holy properties. The reason vampires couldn't see themselves in mirrors was because the lining for mirrors back then was silver.
Huh.
All right, so let's see. And JR saying, is Castlevania on Steam, or are they all simple side scrollers?
I know that they're not all simple side scrollers. I know it's the first
All the
four
good
at
ones
least are.
are side-scrolling platformers, I'll tell you that. If it's a good Castlevania, it's a side-scroller. But on Xbox 360, there was a series by Mercury Steam that was called Lord of Shadows, I think. It was Castlevania Lord of Shadows. And that one was done more in that, like, God of War hack and slash sort of way. It was awful. It actually made Dracula was originally a Belmont in that game, and I hate it. But it's there if you want to play that style of game.
All right, so let's see. Solid saying the DMC animated could be even worse than DMC.
Okay, I can
And the
I can explain that. The way that he used the letters lets me know what he's talking about. There was a spin-off game called DMC Devil May Cry that has nothing to do with the main Devil May Cry series. It's actually really fun to play mechanically, but as far as like being a part of Devil May Cry, it's awful. The game is, you would not want it to be part of the franchise. And yeah, this animated series could be even worse than the story they were telling in DMC Devil May Cry. I agree.
All right, so let's see. The thing of the mirrors was
That's the lining,
of
not the thing.
the lining of the mirrors was silver. I never thought of that. All right, and then Solid saying Lament of Innocence is DMC-esque. What would you say to that, Metal?
Yeah, that's kind of fair. They did a couple other ones like that. The Lament of Innocence was on PlayStation 2. Castlevania 64 also went into that 3D route. I'm not going to call it a bad game. Story-wise, it's fine. I've never cared for Castlevania in 3D. And I even like those Devil May Cry games. Devil May Cry is one of my favorite game franchises. I just don't think Castlevania as a series works as well in that scope. Like, it's just good as a 2D platformer. It's part of its identity as a game.
All right. So with that, let's get back to the article then. Let's see. Eventually, Netflix's post was brought to the personal attention of Dietz himself. Now, I know, Tim, you came in late. Dietz is the guy who's actually directing this adaptation. And this whole thing's more about how Netflix was marketing it as opposed to the actual show itself. So Curtis,
Yeah, you're talking about the streaming service that let on a certain movie that everyone hated. Well, why are you surprised they're going to ruin something?
yeah. Well, they probably let on a lot of stuff, a few things that a lot of people hated. But am I guessing that what the particular thing you're talking about has something to do with an illegal activity?
Yeah, well, you know what I'm talking about. The moment they did something like that, you knew that Netflix was a shit show.
Yeah. Anyways, um, let's see. Courtesy of a fan who tagged the director's Twitter account. Quote, what a strange take, unquote, at Inner Demons GR noted. Quote, I always thought the Belmont family were heroes of legend, flawed at times, yes, but heroes nonetheless, unquote. Quote, should viewers be hating Richter right now because I haven't gotten to this episode yet, unquote. He then asked Dietz directly. In turn, the director responded, quote, we don't run this account, and I do not endorse this post. Okay, so he nipped that in the butt pretty quick. Following his discovery of this post, Dietz returned to Twitter the next day to express frustration at how, in his eyes, Netflix's marketing represented the Castlevania spin-off's identity. Quote, man, unquote, said the director. Quote, not a vague tweet, but I work too much to have to add in smaller quotes, keep an eye on marketing so they don't misrepresent our show, on smaller quote, to my grossly oversized to-do list.
And JR, I just checked on Castlevania on Steam. Yes, there seems to be some versions of it. There's even a collection of it for on there.
So what? Okay, so what is your guys' take on that? Any comments on that aspect?
Well, I
Does
think as a
anybody
director,
think that they really have to worry about marketing?
I think all directors should have to keep an eye on marketing. It should already be on your, or at least the producer, if there's a difference in the role. But somebody at the higher end of a production studio should be keeping an eye on marketing. It's actually kind of part of their job.
Yeah, somebody should be in charge of, keeping in touch with the marketing department, making sure they're marketing the way that you want.
For all we know, Netflix's marketing department is probably filled with a bunch of SJWs who are more interested in pushing their narratives than really telling a good story or giving fans what they want.
My understanding is that Netflix, believe it or not, is actually a very ideologically diverse studio, which we saw when they were standing up for Dave Chappelle. There was the big walkouts, but it wasn't like everyone in the studio. Some people were actually on his side and were against kind of like the walkouts. Netflix does kind of almost have like that freedom of speech, but also freedom of money mentality, where they will let people do their thing as long as it makes them money, right? So they will let you have your hyper progressives show, but they will also let you have your show that makes fun of hyper progressives as long as it makes them money, which is why they were on Dave Chappelle's side. They are more of like a producer. They give you money. They want you to make them something, but they're not really involved directly in the production process.
So you're saying that maybe the marketing is just one of those that just has more hyper progressives in it, though.
It could be. Like, that department could be the one that has more progressive people. I don't know. I just know from what I've seen, the company is actually pretty ideologically diverse.
All right. So anyways, continuing on with
if they're getting money, they don't care.
Yeah. Let's
Which
see.
is how most companies should be.
So, sometime after the tweet and an act later revealed to be the result of Deep's own protestations, Netflix would take down their insulting Castlevania marketing attempt. My guess is because they started seeing the storm clouds coming that okay, if we don't nip this in the butt, we're gonna probably lose money, right? You guys say
Yeah,
that?
possibly.
Yeah. Lose
Um,
customers.
yeah. Quote, I asked them to take that post down because, for one, while I'd like to believe it was unintentional, it came across to us as baiting rage engagement, unquote. Dietz explained on October 2nd. Quote, that goes fundamentally against everything we believe. And second, it was disrespectful to the story, characters, fans, and to us as creators, unquote. Quote, Richter's story arc is about his trauma, grief, and burden of his legacy, and with a star here, asterisk, fear of living up to it, an asterisk, um, but coming out the other side for the people he loves and becoming the hero we know him to be, unquote. He continued. Metal, again, you're a Castlevania expert.
So that is a fine story for a character. It's not Richter's story. It's the story they gave to this Richter.
Okay. Well, could this also maybe be depicted as well? Okay, so according from what we've been told here, it's based on the Rondo of Blood version of the game, correct?
Very loosely.
Very loosely. Okay. Could this possibly be maybe an earlier part of the game where maybe he because obviously he didn't just well, I may be wrong on this aspect, but you can correct me if I'm wrong here, Metal, because I know you're the expert here. It wasn't like Richter was born out of the womb ready to be a hero or anything like that, right? It's not like
No.
as a baby he was instantly a hero. He's instantly heroic.
But here's the thing about video games, right? Like, they could have added this story. I know some other games even tell you some stuff about the different ancestors' earlier lives. When you meet Richter, though, at the beginning of the game, basically Maria Rennard literally falls into his lap. Like, she falls from above him. And both of them are ready to start the adventure from that point. Like, you meet him already ready to be a hero if you're actually basing it off the story.
In other words, in the game continuity, anyways, he was already at a point where he was already a pretty much an established hero.
I don't know if established, but he was grown and ready to be it. Because like the thing about the Belmonts are, they do have a legacy. So part of this, having to live up to his legacy, you could put that burden in there. That's perfectly fine. Right. All this other stuff though is like added flavor that they're putting in there.
Right. I'm not trying to be contradictory. I'm just trying to point out a possible.
Yeah.
Maybe they were trying to focus more on his formative years, whereas the game had already had him more as an established character, had his role already well established.
Because the Belmonts, this is another thing I hate about it, right? Because they changed who Trevor was as well before this. And another big one is they kind of turned the Catholic Church into the bad guys of the series, when the Belmonts often very much work alongside the church, and the Catholic Church are actually one of the big helping hands in the Castlevania franchise, because they're hunting monsters and demonic creatures.
Yeah, that's more of an issue of modern times, though.
Yeah.
Where you have a lot, now, Grant, I know you said Netflix is actually ideologically more diverse, but there still does seem to be kind of this backlash of trying to turn, Christian church, in general, into the bad guy, no matter what denomination it is.
Yeah, well, like I said, the thing about Netflix, you almost have to take them out of the picture, even though it's a Netflix production. And again, because they're just the ones who provide the money. You have to look at the individual production studios that are doing things. Like, you could go over and you can look at One Piece, the live action, which a lot of people are raving about. They think it's actually a pretty good adaptation. And part is that the producer of that one learned from the mistakes of Cowboy Bebop and was also working directly with Oda. So you can't just look at it as...
that was, and I know that's been the big thing they've been talking a lot about with that, is that, they're staying true to the source material and really paying close attention and really listening to the creator of the property, as opposed to what they did with Cowboy Bebop, when they just basically just put his name and just told him, sit there, be quiet, and let us do our thing. It's like...
Yeah. Well,
they learned what fans actually want.
Also, I think the difference is, too, that the guy that, and I could be wrong, the guy that did One Piece basically said, I'm going to have my say and you're going to listen to me whether you like it or not. He had it written into his contract or whatever.
Oh, yeah, Oda would not have worked with them otherwise.
Right. Well, and I think a lot of people would be saying that's what more creators have to do. I mean...
Yeah, that's what I would do if Netflix came to me and wanted to do some cross-comic stuff, I'm there.
Yeah. Like, if I was going to do Castlevania, there's actually one person I would hit up immediately from Japan. And while he did not work on this game, or actually any of the games that have been adapted so far, he is kind of the, quintessential creator of Castlevania, and that's Igarashi, who has made everything from, Symphony of the Night and on. And now he makes the Bloodstained series. He would be the person I would tap. Or I would ask him, hey, which writers from the series should I get if I want to make a good adaptation of Castlevania? And he would probably connect me to the right people because he still knows everybody that used to work with him, right? That's what you should do. But these are different production studios. So it's not Netflix, it's what production studio are we looking at?
Tim, you've been quiet for a while. Is there anything you wanted to add to the conversation?
Well, I guess if I had somebody do a Melvin adaptation, the guy who worked on whoever worked on Fist of the North Star, because I love that cartoon. Who was that, Metal?
Oh, well, you would want the people who adapted Fist of the North Star specifically.
Definitely. Yes.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what studio did the Hokuto no Ken anime. Let me look.
It seems that cartoon seems to be the right amount of violence I would want in a Melvin cartoon. God bless America and Japan.
That was it was under Fuji TV.
Right.
It was a Toei animation. Okay, that made yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Toei animation, which
says
course,
that
they do everything.
Oh, even Solid mentioned that. Even Solid said right there.
Oh yeah, he got it. I wasn't looking at the chat when he mentioned, but yeah, it was a Toei.
Yeah.
So they also did Dragon Ball. They did Sailor Moon and
Dragon Ball
One
too,
Piece.
didn't they?
Yeah.
So Toei did Dragon Ball as well.
So. They do everything. Dragon Ball is one of the big ones. They also do One Piece. They've done Sailor Moon. Toei is a huge animation house in Japan.
Well, they actually got their start all the way back in 1970, or even before.
Yeah, the first animation they ever did was a
Yeah.
movie for Puss in Boots, which is why Puss in Boots is Toei's Animation's mascot.
Yeah. So, anyways, continuing on with the article here. Let's see, we're at hour 34, so we'll probably start to wrap up after this, because let's see. Oh yeah, we already read that line, so let's continue on here. Quote: his grief over his mother's death hits right at home with me as someone who spent the better part of a decade bottling up and struggling to process the death of my father. The guilt I felt as if there were something I could have done differently, unquote, further detailed, before asking, quote, why in the world would I want to make a mockery of that? let's see, quote, the burden of carrying a legacy hits right at home, too, as we try to carry the weight of the Castlevania legacy, unquote. Dietz then emphasized, quote, it's heavy. We work long hours, full of anxiety, trying to do our best to live up to it. There are pieces of us in his story. It's not something we take lightly. So it sounds like Deeks and the directors and the people working on it are not on the same page as marketing. Would you guys agree with that?
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Sounds like it.
Yeah. Bringing his thoughts to a close, Deeks concluded, quote, anyways, these are some things I just needed to get off my chest. There's probably going to be a few people annoyed with me that I said it, but I felt like it needed to be said. Wish me luck, unquote. All 8 episodes of Castlevania Nocturne are currently available for streaming on Netflix. What did you guys think of that article?
Good.
Uh,
Interesting.
All right.
I don't know. I mean, I think it was a fair article. If I'm, just talking about that was bounding into comics, right? Like, it was a fair article. I just don't know how I feel about it because while the marketing team and the director definitely may not be on the same page, I think part of the problem with the story might be that the writers and directors are probably injecting too much of themselves in it. Because you can do a story about the burden of legacy, and that necessarily wouldn't be a bad story for Richter. But I mean, you could put that on any Belmont, right? They kind of already somewhat did that in verse with Trevor in the previous Castlevania, but like it does just feel like it's suffering too much of we're making it our story, not the story
From
of
the
Castlevania.
interjection from the interjection of the people who are currently creating it.
You can do
Yeah.
that. You can do that. You can inject yourself into your own stories, not someone else's story.
Yeah, and we've talked a lot about that as on this show as well. Let me just get these real quick. So, he's not heavy. He's my brother. Yeah, that's an old classic saying. Let's see, from Cynical Bleak there, aka Woody. Was he telling us that he's going into the top surgery clinic? I don't think so. When he said he had a couple of things he wanted to get off his chest. Oh boy.
Let's just hope it's not a growth.
Yeah. At Netflix, so I can actually believe the dude is setting up for top surgery.
She.
Or she. Okay. Anyways, all right. So let's start to kind of wind things down here a bit. But before we get into, of course, this weekend in Nietzsche history, Tim, you were here Friday night.
Yeah, I remember Friday night.
Now, just so you know, I don't want to get back into the
Yeah.
more controversial discussion we were having. That's something we can do later or whatever.
You sure that's not gay coded? That's a joke.
Yeah, I know. But what I wanted to ask you about, since you were sitting in there, and we did eventually get back to reading the comics. From what we did read, you want to from your perspective of in the chat as we were reading, and give your perceptions on the stories you read. And of course, for those of you who don't remember, RJ and I were reading from Wiz Comics Volume 1, issue. Well, technically it was the first issue, but according to the index, it was issue 2. We kind of went over all that, in the earlier part of the show.
Oh, the Captain Marvel thing.
Yeah, we read the original Captain Marvel,
The real Captain Marvel,
AKA Shazam.
Right, Ibis the Invincible and Spy Smasher. So, I just wanted to see if maybe you had some things, maybe you want to give your impressions on what we read.
It's pretty much some kid who could turn into a superhero.
Yeah, geez, you really make it sound exciting there, Tim.
Well, you were there. You were there for all three stories, weren't you? When we were reading. All
no, I think I came in during the Shazam thing, and then we got sidetracked, and then
Oh, and you didn't stick around for the because I eventually did go back to read.
when I came back, you were getting into the last part of your show where you're going through the news this
Okay.
weekend. Yeah.
Yeah, I was there for all of Captain Marvel myself.
Yeah, it was oh yeah, I made a joke about like he foiled him by smashing the TV. I'm like, and I was like, if only there was another TV.
Oh yeah, Rick, you were there for the Captain Martin. Did you want to give any thoughts on that or?
Well, it was definitely a little. Well, it has a lot of similarities to the more recent, but it's enough different. Obviously, well, just like a lot of the comics back then. I think the characters were a little darker for just because with Captain Marvel talking about killing the villain. I think, and again, it's a comic from that day and age, and we still do some of this stuff today. But just Billy Batson himself being able to get that in with the reporter and all that, or the newspaper chief or whatever, seemed a little ridiculous.
Yeah.
It was like, and when
Well,
says,
it would have made more sense at that time period because you have to remember, even though they're starting to come out of the depression already, even kids were starting to get in, start working and stuff, get out in the workforce because it was still kind of
get that. I get that, but it's the low. He's just a kid on the street giving out, trying to sell newspapers to make a buck, or make a cent, probably more like it. But so the chances of, he runs into the office, he subskirts, to get in, but to the guy, and the guy listens, and you're just a kook kid. It's like, why even listen to the kid if you think he's going to be a kook, Just kick him out if you're not going to believe his story. Like,
well, maybe he did. I mean, again, kids were you had to consider because of the times. Kids probably were considered a little more mature than they are now. Kids,
I get
in that time period, they did have to take on more responsibility, so it would be natural.
I get that, but this guy didn't even give him the benefit of the doubt. Like, you're gonna listen to this kid. Obviously he's gonna say something that you might not believe. Maybe you should be taking it with a grain of salt. Just because it's somebody, big honcho or whatever. Oh, it's in this one place. Oh, no way that somebody in that place could be an evil, corrupt moron. That's how the guy sort of took it, And then the other thing that I was going to point out is at the end where, Billy Batson said, yeah, I'm going to take on that scientist too. I'm going to go looking for that scientist and, take him on. It's like, kid, you would think somebody would say, kid, I think that's more a job for the police or somebody a little.
Well, and if you were around for the story, you also saw at the very end of it, he almost blew his cover as well.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, anyways, we'll start. As I said, we'll start to wind down here. I just want to get since you guys were there and heard the stories and stuff like that. Just wanted to, of course. Let's see. I've got Rick. I have you next as my co-host on the 20th, I believe. Right?
Yeah. So that's 2 weeks from now.
Yeah, that'd be a week from this Friday, and then Tim, I have you on the 27th, the week after that.
Yep.
Who's next week? Oh no, is next
Friday? This coming Friday, the 13th, there'll be Shadowhawk.
Oh, okay.
From Devil Flyer, and then Metal. I think I have you tentatively still for November 10th. Correct?
Yes. I do have that marked down.
Okay. All right. So, anyways, we'll start to wind down here. So today is and just for those who may not know, yesterday was my 48th birthday. So, happy birthday to
Happy
me.
40th.
48th. 48th.
Oh, 48.
Yep.
After
Yeah, it's
40.
his 8th 40th birthday.
Anyways, so well, today is Sunday, October 8th, 2023. So let's take a look back at this weekend in Nietzsche history. History!
History!
All right. So let me
Actually, it would be your 9th 40th birthday.
Anyways, that was 1983. All right. So first off, heading back to yesterday, October 7th. First off, we're going to head back 80 years ago yesterday. 80 years ago yesterday, in which we had the on yesterday's date 80 years ago, back in 1943, the 30th issue of Exciting Comics from Standard went on sale on that date. Sold for 10 cents for 56 pages, featuring the Black Terror. So 80 years ago yesterday, the 30th issue of Exciting Comics from Standard went on
How
sale.
exciting were they?
I'm sure they were pretty exciting for the time. And then, history, cynical, bleak, aka wait, history. Yeah.
I think you forgot a letter. That's his try, not history.
Or it could be history, like maybe somebody just being lazy and not saying the his story. Maybe they're just saying it so quickly.
It's definitely a tree that belongs to him.
Who can forget the Black Terror?
I don't know. Who is he? I forgot him already.
All right. Well, anyways, moving on to the next piece of Nietzsche history. Going back 40 years ago yesterday.
We cut time in half.
on yesterday's date, 40 years ago today, the anime Special Armored Battalion Dorvac premiered on Japanese television, specifically on what was at the time known as FNS, which today we would know as Fuji TV.
It looked like the Transformers movie.
From Ashi Productions. Special Armored Battalion Dorvac premiered on Fuji TV on yesterday's date, 40 years ago, back in 1983.
Looked like a version of Transformers. Bleat says.
Well, there were a lot of mecha animes are pretty popular in Japan.
It's one of my favorite genres. I love mechs.
Yeah, I know. I'm just teasing, of course. I know it wasn't true. T-formers.
Let's see. Flipping, no shizzle. Oops, her story.
I was like 4 when that came out.
Yeah, I would have been about. In fact, that happened on that would have been coming out on my 8th birthday, actually.
Hey, old timer.
I would have been 10.
Yeah.
Oh, you bunch of old people here.
Anyways.
Was Metal even born?
I was not even born.
Oh, now I'm the old one.
Now let's get to today's date. And first off, of course, I'd like to wish a happy 30th birthday to voice actress Molly Quinn. Full name, of course, Molly Caitlin Quinn, who, of course, who in terms of her voice acting credits included voicing Bloom, one of the main characters of the Nickelodeon revival of Winx Club. So she was known for voicing Bloom in Winx Club, also Supergirl and Superman Unbound, and Eunice and Ultimate.
I think they're underselling saying Bloom is one of the main characters. Bloom is the main character. She's basically the equivalent of Sailor Moon in that show.
Okay.
So happy 30th birthday to Molly Quinn.
Yes. Happy birthday. Happy birthday.
And finally,
Happy birthday to you.
Going back 5 years ago today, back to 2018. On this date, 5 years ago today, WWE held its Monday Night Raw event from the Allstate Arena in Chicago suburb Rosemont Horizon. It was the night after, or 2 nights after their Australian pay-per-view. On the night, of course, the main event saw Braun Strowman and the tag team known as The Show at the time of Dolph Ziggler and Drew McIntyre defeating the members of The Shield of Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins, Dean Ambrose. Ember Moon defeated Nia Jax via countout. Ember Moon, who is, of course, now known as Athena in AEW, Ring of Honor. The Conquistador won a World Cup Global Battle Royal. Finn Balor and Bayley defeated Alicia Fox and Jinder Mahal. Ronda Rousey teamed with the Bella Twins to defeat the team known as the Riot Squad of Ruby Riott, Liv Morgan, and Sarah Logan. Ruby Riott, who's known as Ruby Soho now in AEW. So
Bleat says the Shield.
yeah. Well, the Shield was a faction known in the WWE at the time that was composed of Roman Reigns, Dean Ambrose, who's now Jon Moxley in AEW, and Seth Rollins. So, anyways, with that, I thank everybody for being here tonight. I hope everybody enjoyed the show. Let's see. You guys can stick around for a moment. You guys can stick around for a moment for post show. That'd be appreciated.
Yeah.
I'm going to take a wild guess that the Conquistador was wearing them. Yes, and I don't actually. Let me just check because now the Conquistador is more of a character that the WWE has used over the years. Back in the original Conquistadors were Jose Luis Rivera and Jose Estrada, who were wrestlers in the WWE, and then they just had them don like golden suits. And then a few guys have donned the suits for certain, like the Hardys and Edge and Christian also. But in this particular case, the guy portraying the Conquistador in this one was actually Kurt Angle. I just looked it up. So, but the Conquistador is more like a character that the WWE had used. For those of you who probably watched a lot of, at the time WWF or later WWE. The Conquistador was basically more or less an enhancement character they used. They just would throw guys into it, and
it's more of a mantle that you could probably consider
for a swerve or something like that. But they were basically jobbers. They were like well-known jobbers. So, anyways, with that, I thank everybody for being here. I hope everybody had a good time tonight. And Woody saying thanks, all the guests. I really appreciate it. Very nice additional information. I appreciate it. Yeah, I always have the information. That's always what I try to do. And if I don't have it, I'm sure one of our panelists might. Right?
Sure.
Anyways,
maybe.
That's the whole big thing.
Or we'll try and get it.
Just getting those conversations going. So, anyways, I thank everybody for being here. We'll be back here with Niche News tomorrow. This Friday, of course, Shadowhawk will be joining me as we'll be continuing our look through comics that went on sale in December 1939. This week, we're going to be looking at Jumbo Comics from Fiction House. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and we will see you all tomorrow.
Until